Hello and welcome back to this, my third and final tutorial time video showcasing how I draw. In this short series, comprised of 3 videos, we've already covered 5 of the 7 steps I used in my drawing process. So we'll get started here with step 6, which is coloring. Now, coloring is super important. However, with some of the tools that I use, it's relatively easy. One of the tools I use a lot is a gradient map, and these gradient maps can be whatever color you want them to be, so they're pretty flexible. Essentially, what a gradient map allows you to do is it allows you to say, I want the highlights of the picture to be colored maybe a little bit more yellow, a little bit lighter, as if it's being hit by the sun, and then the shadowed elements of the picture to be maybe a little bit cooler and a little bit bluer. So I use these all the time when I'm coloring. Essentially, it just kind of breaks up the color just a little bit. It just gives you a nice variation. Here I'm using a gradient layer. So there are gradient maps and gradient layers. Both of them are great tools to use. Gradient maps, again, I use when I'm coloring things. Gradient layers I use when I'm trying to affect an area of the picture, whether that's brightening it, brightening like an entire area, or darkening an entire area, or splashing some color over an area. That's the main. Those are the main times when I'm using gradient layers. Essentially, they just kind of spread whatever effect you have them spreading, and then gradually diminish. That's the way that I normally work with those. Here you can see that I'm trying to add some shadows that are kind of, I suppose, a little bit kind of brown in color to the background to tie in the ground and the trees with the rest of the green background. As I mentioned before, backgrounds are definitely not my specialty, so we're just gonna call it good and keep moving. Yeah, moving on here, I start coloring her. I add in a new layer for her cloak, for a new gradient map layer, for her skin. You can see me adding in there. This is going to be for her gloves. This is bright yellow. And then I add in another one for her armor, and then eventually her eyes, and a final one to add some life to her hair. And again, gradient maps section off things in colors, but they can also be used for special effects. Speaking of which, step 7 is special effects. So to kind of set up my special effects, I create a folder, and then I set the type of the folder to a screen type. I then create a layer, put it inside the folder, and paint that black. Now, nothing should happen at this point to your picture because the folder is set to screen type, and black just kind of has that effect. It doesn't really do anything if it's set to screen type. So now you create a gradient map over the black, and you set the colors that you want, making sure that you end the gradient map with black. This is a technique that I found on Stephen Argyle's tutorial series, so check those out if you get a chance. So the setup's good, great, grand, and wonderful, but we don't have any special effects just yet. So in order to do that, you have to create new layers and draw on these layers with a white brush, and it's going to give you a kind of variety of the colors that you selected with the gradient map. This is great for magical effects, fiery effects, lightning effects. It really does a great job with a lot of different kind of special effect elements that I work with. I've even used it to create some kind of darkening magic effects and all that good stuff. Essentially, it's when I want to draw something that has a variety of color, but isn't really shaded. So either it's kind of like fire, where it's adding light to the scene, so it doesn't really get affected by light, or it's more abstract, like some dark magic or something that, again, isn't getting affected by the lighting. It's more of creating its own ambiance or what have you. Hopefully that makes some sense. Essentially, the setup is something that I use for my fire and a lot of my special effects. So I definitely suggest, testing it out. If you enjoy it or know how to improve on it, I'd say go right ahead. As far as brushes go, I basically just stick with the circle brush. I know that a lot of artists use really cool brushes, and I'm sure it'd be great to work with, all the different brushes that these great artists work with. The reason that I don't use specialized brushes, well, I guess that the way that I see it is if something is worth, putting the time and effort into, if it's worth having the extra bit of texture and detail, then it's probably worth just working on it with a circle brush. But that's just the way that I see it. Here I'm finishing up the picture, playing around with actual fire, and it's not working. Just a compositional thing here and there. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this commentary-styled tutorial series, let me know. If you'd like to see more or have a specific one in mind, definitely drop me, a comment in the comments below. This picture in specific took about 4 hours, just over 4 hours to draw, which I was super glad about because, again, I wanted to keep it shorter, and the 4-hour, 5-hour marker is really where I'd like to keep most of my artwork at. Sadly, most of it takes me more like 10 hours to draw and get refined. So this is, maybe a little bit rougher than some of my other pieces of artwork, but I'm definitely happy with how it turned out. Another thing that I should probably mention is that first off, I'm super psyched about the 1,000 subscribers. That is awesome. You guys are great. I really appreciate all the support you guys have given me. It's really cool to see my channel growing, and hopefully it'll continue to grow for a long time to come. That being said, I am hoping to continue to make video games with Noble Bros. I'm not sure if it's going to go anywhere, but essentially, since I'm a digital artist, I learned how to do a lot of digital artwork for video games in specific, and some of my brothers know how to program, etc., etc. We decided to create Noble Bros, and we have 2 free to-play games out right now, Panda Box and Saint Blaze. Neither one is perfect, but I definitely would enjoy any critiques you've got for them. So in short, I might not have enough time to post more than once a week, but I will be trying to keep on posting at least once a week to this channel. So let me know if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see art-wise, and I'll see what I can do. So definitely feel free to check out Noble Bros' video games, and I will catch you in another tutorial time video. Bye.